Good afternoon. Thank you for your invitation. I'll introduce my presentation. This review summarizes the relationship between nutrition, gut microbiota, and host metabolic status. We discussed how our dietary habits modify the composition of the gut microbiota and how gut dysbiosis affects the most prevalent gastrointestinal disease. The definition of plant-based diet varies largely and may be defined differently among researchers, scientists, and clinicians. However, recent guidelines have provided a consensus definition. According to the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics and the Italian Society of Human Nutrition, a vegetarian diet includes all the plant food groups, while it does not include meat or seafood or products containing this food, and can also avoid dairy, eggs, and sometimes honey. In recent years, there has been a growing interest in the role of plant-based diets and their implication for human health. A growing number of studies have shown an association between plant-based diets and a lower risk of chronic disease. This diet is rich in high-quality plant food such as whole grain, fruits, legumes, vegetables, and nuts. The potentially beneficial role of plant-based diets in gastrointestinal health has been recognized, with a large and growing body of evidence documenting their positive health effects. Therefore, plant-based diets can be useful for the treatment and prevention of most diseases of the gastrointestinal tract. The benefits are mainly related to the improvement of metabolic parameters, such as body mass index, glucose levels, levels of total and low-density lipoprotein cholesterol, triglycerides, and C-reactive protein. These benefits are related to a reduced risk of morbidity and mortality, reduced incidence of cancer and metabolic syndrome. Many of those benefits of plant-based diets are mediated by gut microbiota, whose members produce specific metabolites that vary depending on whether an individual is following an omnivorous or vegetarian diet. Diet modify the composition of and metabolism of the gut microbiota. The microbiota is a link between introduced nutrients and microbial metabolites produced through dietary intake. Gut microbiota, where are they? The gut microbiota can be considered a virtual organ of the body. It's a very complex community that inhabit the gastrointestinal tract. What are they? The phyla that constitute the majority of the clusters found in the human digestive tract are Firmicutes, Bacteroidetes, Actinobacteria, and Verrucomicrobia. Where do they come from? The diversity and functions of the gut microbiota are influenced by many different factors, including age, use of antibiotics, consumption of pro or prebiotics, and also by dietary habits. Observational studies on healthy subjects have shown that there are differences in the composition of gut microbiota between individuals following vegetarian diet and omnivores. Now we'll see a comparative study describing the gut microbiota composition of European children eating a Western diet with Burkina Faso children eating a traditional plant-based diet. Gut microbiota in Burkina Faso children has a significantly higher diversity compared to European children. and showed an enrichment in Bacteroidetes and the depletion of Firmicutes, as well as the presence of the general Prevotella, which were absent in the gut of European children. Plant-based diets may have a positive impact on the gut microbiota by encouraging the growth of more diversified and stable microbial systems. Gut microbiota represents a pathway through which a healthy diet, as a plant-based diet, can influence individual health. The interaction between diet and gut microbiota is bidirectional. Gut microbiota acts on the nutrients introduced with the diet. Food has an impact on gut microbiota system. All this creates a link between the introduced nutrient and different physiological states through the ability of the microbes to generate microbial metabolites depending on the dietary intake. This table summarizes the main effects of a plant-based diet, nutrients, on gut microbiota and gastrointestinal health. Plant-based diet rich in fiber and phytochemicals has an impact on the composition and function of the microbiota, which in turn affects overall health. Recent studies show how long-term dietary interventions are most effective in changing gut microbiota, providing a constant source of food substrates and continually shaping the gut ecosystem. Within a well-planned plant-based diet, the consumption of plant products results in an increase in the intake of non-digestible carbohydrates. Carbohydrates found in plant fibers, such as fruit and vegetables, are called microbiota-accessible carbohydrates. They are resistant to digestion and absorption by host enzymes in the small intestine and are then metabolized by the colon microbiota. They are essential for anaerobic microbial fermentation, whose main products are different postbiotic modulated by the gut microbiota, such as short-chain fatty acids, including acetate, propionate, and butyrate, which have an anti-inflammatory function, strengthen the function of gut barrier, and improve overall gut health. Plant-based diets contribute to a high intake of phytochemicals, polyphenols, carotenoids, and phytosterols, which are naturally occurring bioactive compounds produced by plants as secondary metabolites essential for plant physiology. Phytochemicals can influence intestinal health through their ability to interact with the composition and function of the gut microbiota. Increase beneficial bacteria, Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium, which are known producers of butyrate. A study in vitro investigation have demonstrated that polyphenolic compounds have antioxidant properties as a result of their function in neutralizing free oxygen and nitrogen species and in preventing oxidative stress. The beneficial effects of plant food have an impact on metabolic processes, including lipid metabolism. Unsaturated fatty acids are found in large quantities in plant food. According to observational studies, a diet rich in plant fats increased bifidobacteria and Akkermansia mucinifera. Now we are going to discuss the potential biological mechanism underlying the effects of plant-based diets on gastrointestinal tract. Let's speak about colorectal cancer. A lot of studies investigate the prevalence of colorectal cancer risk in the population and have included that plant-based diets are associated with a lower risk of diseases. Increased consumption of fruit, vegetable, and whole grains reduce the risk of overall cancer, incidence, and death. A lower incidence of gastrointestinal cancers has been linked to a higher intake of legumes, such as beans and lentils. The gut microbiota has started to be recognized as an environmental component affecting the pathophysiology of the host. Intestinal inflammation, a risk factor for colorectal cancer, has been linked to pathogenic bacteria. Moreover, a plant-based diet improves the quantity of gut bacteria, optimizing therapy effects. Now we talk about inflammatory bowel disease. IBD is a chronic condition with a multifactorial etiology in which diet factors appears to play an important role. It is well recognized that excessive consumption of sugar and animal fat increases the risk of having IBDs, whereas a high-fiber diet can be protective. The consumption of a plant-based diet reduces the intake of saturated fatty acids and animal proteins, and increase the intake of non-digestible carbohydrates and phytochemicals from fruit and vegetable. As a result, pro-inflammatory cytokines are downregulated and microbial diversity is enhanced, which reduces intestinal inflammation and disease activity. When we began to consider IBD as a disease related to lifestyle that is predominantly brought on by dietary westernization, we changed our mode of treatment and started to concentrate on diets. Chronic excessive alcohol consumption is the primary cause of fatty liver disease, alcoholic fatty liver disease. While non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is often caused by poor eating habits, such as a high-fat diet, excessive fructose intake, and animal protein consumption. The results of a recent study are partly consistent with previous research that found an inverse relationship between the consumption of fruit, vegetable, whole grains, and nuts and the risk of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Many clinical researchers have been conducted to investigate the biological effects of plant-based diet in fatty liver disease patients, or the bioactive substances in plant food that can be used to prevent fatty liver disease. IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, is a functional gastrointestinal disorder that has a high impact on quality of life. Diet represents the factor with the biggest impact on IBS symptoms. The evidence to date suggests that among the many types of diets, short-term restriction of FODMAP may be the most efficient dietary strategy for lowering IBS symptoms. The adoption of a PBD is not supported by any conclusive findings in the literature. But PBD can help people with IBS, but the type and amount of fiber added to the diet is still unclear. The National Institute for Health and Care Excellence Clinical Practice Guideline of 2008 outlined the fundamental dietary recommendation for IBS, which include the need for regular meals and plenty of fluids, the consumption of high fiber and starch-resistant foods, with a controlled intake of up to 3 servings fruit per day. A high-fiber diet has been the standard of care for IBS constipation patients. In particular, soluble fiber as psyllium, due to the lack of major side effects and its possible benefit on the gut microbiota. Let's talk about diverticular disease. A recent review based primarily on the data of the EPIC Oxford cohort investigated the risk of a variety of different diseases and their association with food. This study demonstrates how increasing dietary fiber intake can lower the incidence of diverticular disease. The risk of diverticular disease was found to be 27% lower in lacto-vegetarians and 72% lower in vegans than in meat eaters. Dietary fiber consumption was linked to the prevalence of symptomatic diverticular disease. In comparison to non-vegetarians, vegetarians consumed much more fiber than the former. The main effect of plant food on gastrointestinal disease are summarized in this table. Take-home message. A large body of evidence documents the positive health effect on well-planned plant-based diets, particularly in the management of the most common gastrointestinal diseases. Many of the benefits of the plant-based diets are mediated by gut microbiota. A plant-based diet can enhance the gut microbiota and general health by eliciting diversity and richness of beneficial bacteria and a reduction in harmful metabolites. Switching from an animal-based diet to a plant-based diet may allow to decrease intestinal inflammation in people with active IBD, to reduce the severity of their disease, and to aid in maintaining clinical remission. Several observational studies have shown that plant-based diets are more effective than omnivore diets in reducing body weight and improving non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Then it is known a protective effect of a vegetarian diet with respect to the total cancer incidence, but a vegan diet is associated with a higher decreased risk of total cancer incidence. The reasons for adopting this food pattern often go beyond health and well-being and include, among others, ethical, ideological, and environmental reasons. The influences of this aspect of plant-based diets are the subject of the new field of nutritional ecology that also involves a sustainable lifestyle and human development. Thank you for your attention.